Bullets and blood mark a serious escalation in the standoff in Myanmar. The generals crack down on protesters, but is the tide turning? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Sami Zaidan. They were sparked by price hikes, attracted the attention of the monks, but now seem to have taken on a life of their own. The protests against the military rulers of Myanmar ended in bloodshed Thursday when the general's patience with demonstrators ran out. Rawi Arage reports on a bloody day that's put Myanmar at the forefront of world attention.
Go home or be shot. That was the government's warning to protesters Thursday. Later, they fired automatic weapons over the crowds. Sources continue to disagree, but it's reported several people have been killed and hundreds arrested in protests across Myanmar. Thousands are still demonstrating. The United States and the European Union have condemned the attacks and are calling on Myanmar's military leaders to talk to the protesters. But Myanmar's few allies are calling for restraint. The military junta has ruled the country since 1962 when it seized control in a coup. The government said it wouldn't hold on to power for long, but the military has controlled the government ever since. After mass demonstrations in 1988 in which more than 3,000 people were killed, the military staged another coup and promised what they called free and fair elections. That vote 2 years later gave dissident Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy an overwhelming victory. But the military rejected the results, and General Than Shwe has ruled the country for more than 15 years. In 1991, Suu Kyi won the Nobel Peace Prize for her non-violent efforts to bring democracy to her country. But she couldn't accept the award in person. The military government has held Suu Kyi under house arrest or in prison for most of the past 20 years. That regime is now facing its most serious challenge in years as the crowds of demonstrators opposing it continue to grow.
Well, joining us today to discuss the issue, our guests in Oslo, Kim Wong-win, Deputy Executive Director of the Democratic Voice of Burma, an opposition group based in Oslo. In London, Pascal Coussoy, an exiled author from Myanmar. And in Brussels, Andrew Strawline, Director of Media and Information at the International Crisis Group. Thank you for all of you for joining us. If I could start with Mr. Strawline, the question that begs itself at the beginning, is this the end of the military government?
Well, it's still very difficult to say. I mean, we're in the, right now, what we're most worried about, of course, is we seem to be right on the edge of a precipice in terms of major mass violence in Myanmar. And I think it's far too early to tell whether that signals the beginning of the end or an end of a beginning.
All right, let's go over to Mr. Coussoy. Are the protests about democracy or economics?
Both, I think, but in Burma, as usual, things don't start with, things don't change with political objectives, but they always tend to have these small things like a brawl in the tea shop or this kind of protest against price hikes and small incidents. Burmese politics is a bit like the earthquake, and it tends to be very innocuous at the beginning, and then it tends to get the speed as it goes along.
All right, Mr. Ween, if I could get your input on things. With political parties suppressed and monks, at least some of them now apparently trapped in monasteries, who's mobilizing the masses?
No, there is no real leaders. Of course, there are leaders who have in the opposition movement, but for this particular demonstrations, there is no real leaders. Everybody, every individuals, they join the demonstration on their own conscious individually, because everybody is suffering under this military regime. So they just join this without having influence by somebody.
All right, no clear leaders, as you say, but Andrew Strawline, what are the demands? Are there any clear indication of demands? Are there any clear indication or prospects of perhaps an organisational structure emerging? What do you think, Andrew?
Well, of course, this all kicked off in August with these fuel price hikes. And as your other guest mentioned, these, what seemingly are small problems, really spark the kind of underlying tensions in society. In terms of organization and direction, these kinds of mass movements really are having a direction of their own that's really impossible to tell. It's also very, very difficult to get reliable information from the ground, as journalists are finding out, as our own organizations finding out. There's an enormous amount of speculation and there's an enormous amount of delay in when we're receiving information, when we're receiving new footage. So that makes the situation very difficult to predict and very difficult to understand just exactly who's running the show, if indeed anyone is.
All right, indeed, a very difficult situation there for journalists to operate in. Mr. Kusoy, what prompted the monks to step in? I mean, it started with student protests angry about price hikes. What prompted the monks to get involved?
I think the monks have been the keepers of the soul of Burma, so to say, because since the days of the kings of Burma, they were advisors, they were to the king, they were advisors to the kings, and they also acted as a role of educator and also judge of the society. And so when they saw these unfair activities from the generals, it's impossible for them to just sit in the monasteries and just watch the sufferings of the people. And it seems that it's a bit paradoxical that Buddhist teaching suffering is part of humanity, but the way they see it is they are the leader of the community, and if something wrong is happening in the country, they must lead the people, they must sacrifice themselves, because in the end, their acolytes or their Buddhist followers are the ones who feed them, and they feel a sense of responsibility. So you can see throughout the history of Burma, Buddhist monks have been very important in supporting and the people in general, and they are doing exactly the same now. And I don't think that they will just give up whatever the generals trying to do to them. And they have this, destroying the monks, I think, would be destroying Burma itself.
Well, in
so
light of that, in a sense, has a red line been crossed with the use of violence against them?
I think so, especially the commanders. They know that they are taking a decision, or they have taken a decision to really go beyond what has never been done before since 1988, is to really confront the monks who really hold the moral control over the country. But it is not a be-all and end-all situation. I don't think so, because both sides have their own power, and if they know what their capabilities or their limits, I think that would be the best for the country, I think.
All right, Mr. Ween, we're talking about the monks now commanding the moral authority. You spoke earlier about how there isn't a clear leader. Where is all that leaving the politicians, the political parties? In a sense, have people like Aung San Suu Kyi been sidestepped by all of this action?
I think, of course, there is leaders in the opposition democracy movement like Aung San Suu Kyi and her political parties. But this is not opposition political movement. This is just a movement of the people who have been suffering under disability repression. And we look at the demands of the demonstrators. There are three demands. Number one, to improve livelihood of the people. Number two, to release all the political prisoners, including Aung San Suu Kyi, of course. Number 3, for the national reconciliation, it means dialogue between opposition and the government. All these demands are not a political agenda. That is national agenda. That is affecting everybody. So I say that this movement is not initiated by any particular leader. This is just a people's movement.
All right, do stay with us. It is time now for a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk about why the international community remains divided over Myanmar. Stay with us.